What's going on, knuckleheads? It's your boy Alex, back for another podcast on May 16th, first day in Ontario that we're easing restrictions, so hopefully that's a sign of more good things to come, and I hope I'm right, because if I'm wrong, we may as well be positive. So here goes Alex with the woo-woo shit again, right? Anyways, enough about that. Thanks for tuning in to another one with the man formerly known as Ahmed, Meigag, Alchemists Against Fear on 1 Hour In, podcast number 19. Boom!
So you're all good for like about an hour or so, right? We don't have to do a 3-hour one. I don't think I have the energy to do 3 hours.
No, I was just planning on 1 hour, Alex.
Okay.
I was planning on 1 hour. 1 hour. So
I'm like, they started getting progressively longer. I'm like, these guys are fucking pushing me on purpose.
I said 1 hour in, motherfucker.
I know.
I said 1 hour in.
I know. They're going Joe Rogan on me, fuck.
That's good though, but the thing is, when the conversation is flowing, it's whatever. It's nice. Like, it's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's feeling it. It's nice. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%.
Yeah.
So,
But yo, bro, I'm so fucking happy that you got to read The Alchemist.
yeah.
I'm super fucking happy about that. What I did is I actually re-downloaded it yesterday, and it's a short listening, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of listened to it this morning, and it's 4 hours, I think. So
Yeah.
and I did some bookmarks, because you know when you're doing audibles, you can actually do bookmarks.
Right.
So I did some bookmarks, and I have like cool things that I kind of picked up along the, because it's part 1 and part 2, right? So I have cool things that I picked up while I was listening to it, and made some notes.
Yeah.
Just to make it more interesting. So
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, bro.
No, perfect. Let's do it. If you're ready. I'm ready.
It looks good though, like the way I am right now. It's good.
Yeah, dude. You got a mic to what would be the left side of your chin, like ever so slightly to your left. There's a microphone. You can't see it, obviously, but there's a microphone on my end that's being recorded. So it looks like you're talking into a mic that's slightly on. When you're looking that way, just like that it would have been like right in front of you. And the way you're talking
Like
to me
this?
now, it looks like it's just ever so slightly to the side, which is perfect. It's actually perfect.
Okay.
So, honest to
All right,
God.
cool. So I'm gonna be talking like this the whole time. So
Yeah, that's perfect. I hear seagulls. I hear signs of biological life that is continuing to exist. And,
it's dope. It's dope.
Yeah.
Let's get it going.
All right, let's
good.
do it. 3, 2, 1. Meigag, what's up, bro? Welcome back.
Once again it's on. What's up, bro?
Yeah. I like the orange toque you're representing.
Well, it's actually a bit of my. It's on my logo. I'll send you my logo, but you know, it has an orange feel to it.
Yeah, the new
That
nomad.
deep orange. I think it's me.
Well, it's
There
funny.
you go, the new nomad.
It's funny that is the case, because today we meant to get together to talk on this podcast about The Alchemist and do a bit of a book review. And The Alchemist cover is probably the exact same shade of orange of the hat you're wearing. Look at that.
See, it's not all looks, bro. Not all looks.
All the angles picking this up. So, so you mentioned this book to me, bro, and you even said you've read it 3 times throughout your life. I think you've read it as a child and a couple times in your adult life. And I remember you saying that, you know, you pick up different bits and different levels of wisdom depending on where you're at in your life when you're reading it.
Your life, yeah.
And
So
so
it gets deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was interesting. And obviously I picked up a copy. I also got it on Audible. Great way to consume books. Obviously, if you've got things to do, you don't have time to sit down for hours and hours and hours. You pick it up, you put it on.
Absolutely.
You want to do the dishes. You want to do yoga. You want to do chin-ups, pull-ups. You want to go on, ride your bike. Hey, you can also read a book. So
that's awesome.
yeah, now that that's out of the way, tell me, what do you find most remarkable about The Alchemist?
I would say the writer. Paulo Coelho is actually a great writer. I believe he's Brazilian, if I'm not mistaken. Is he Brazilian or
Spanish?
Hold on, or Spanish, right? Like, I mean, yeah. So Paulo Coelho, I think he is a fascinating character. So in terms of who he is, He is a Brazilian. He's a Brazilian lyricist and novelist.
Yeah.
Best known for his novel The Alchemist.
Right. Right. Right.
That whole thing rhymed. That's how you know he's a lyricist. But
Oh God.
yeah, so I think this was recommended reading at first. I think a cousin of mine recommended to me. I was still a kid, man. Like I think I was in eighth grade or something.
Mm.
Um, and so I read it, and I thought it was cool. I really thought it was cool. The underlying messaging of the whole story is amazing. I find, and it's one of those timeless stories that never gets old. It
Yeah.
never gets old because I read it again in high school, and I read it again after that, and I listened to it actually yesterday,
Mm.
right? Because I just wanted to kind of refresh my memory as well. So I can't get tired of this. So now I'm getting my son to read it, my 13-year-old son to read it. So I think it's time that he got exposed to it. I think The Alchemist, the actual name of The Alchemist, and you understand how as the story flows, the reasoning of The Alchemist and all of that. But the actual word itself talks about chemistry, talks about how we are. I'm sorry, there's a motorcycle. um,
Yo,
talks about
one love.
chemistry. Oh yeah, forgot who I was talking
Yeah.
to. To do the peace sign upside down,
Guy's
but
apologizing. You say hi, man. You wave. Save the wave.
I will save the way. But yeah, so The Alchemist actually is one of those books that I don't think I'll ever outgrow
Yeah.
because the messaging is so timeless and it's gonna carry on throughout anyone's life. I think so.
Yeah.
So I think as a synopsis, that's what I can. We'll get into it and really kind of decipher what we have to decipher. But
Yeah.
grosso modo, that's my thoughts of The Alchemist. It's a timeless story
Yeah.
that we need to all hear. Yeah.
I agree. I agree, bro. I just finished it last week myself. It was the first time I read it, but I can totally see how the premise, the message that it essentially tries to convey can apply to you at any given time of your life. And
Hmm.
it's a very universal thing, but I mean, I hope we're not giving it away here, but we can't really talk about this book without getting to the premise, which is essentially not follow your dreams, not just follow your heart, but follow your real authentic truth, like to the point that it resonates in your core, to the point that it's a feeling you can
Absolutely.
feel without even having the right words to explain it. Like that's really what,
Absolutely.
right? It's saying get to the core of that. And that is the true source of your utmost potential and the purpose and the meaning of your time here on earth in this
Hmm.
lifespan.
Right. And I mean, I think we can do spoiler alerts, right? Is there such a thing as spoiler for books?
I
And
mean,
it's an old book, so if you haven't read it by now, it doesn't matter. But
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
as the premise, as it starts out, right? Man, I forgot the kid's name now. Alejandro, what was his name?
Santiago.
The huh? Santiago. There you
Yeah,
go, Santiago.
yeah,
Santiago basically tells his father about what he wants to do when he grows up and all that, or what he wants to do, right?
yeah,
And he said he told his father he wanted to travel. I think that's what the premise was. I think he said he wanted to travel, and his father said, "Well, son, what is there to see? People come here. People come to where we are to travel. So we have it pretty good here. So why would you want to travel? People actually come to us, and they tell us how mundane their lives are. So they come and get away here. So and you're already here. What's the point?" He's like, "Well, I want to know where they live and how
yeah,
they live."
yeah,
Right. So already you see that Santiago has this adventurous side to him that he really wants to kind of let loose and kind of get to know more. He's got this healthy curiosity that he wants to explore. And so his father goes, "Well, son, the only people that travel that we know of, we're not traveling people. Like, that's not what we do, right? But the only people that travel that we know of are shepherds."
yeah,
And then he's very easily goes, "Well, I guess I'm going to be a shepherd then." One of my favorite parts of this of the beginning of the story is how inviting, or how not inviting, but how supportive his father is. Like his father does not try to clamp down and say, no, this is what you do. His father still says his piece. He still says what he has to say.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, well, look, I had this money aside for you for your, for inheritance, but I think you need it now. If you're going to be a shepherd, go buy your flock of sheep and whatnot and get to it.
Yeah.
I thought that is an amazing, as a father, that kind of touched me differently because it's like, wow, that's exactly what I intend on doing with my kids, right? That's what I
Yeah.
try to do with my kids. It's like, you're gonna hear me, you're gonna hear what I think, but my whole point is to give you the tools to
Yeah.
live your life and to build whatever you want to build.
That's beautiful, bro. You and I have talked many times about this parenting styles. You got, permissive, which is essentially like dismissive. Kid can do whatever they want. There's little guidance, little structure. And then you got
Yep.
authoritarian or authoritative. The first one being you're told what to do, you're told what to think, you're told how to feel, or forget your feelings. The second one is, look, I think this would probably be a good option, but you want to explore on your own. That's cool. Here's some guiding principles. Go ahead and learn from your own experience. And I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out which of those three is most conducive to like good development for a kid and ability to absorb life experience from an early age before life hits them in the face because they didn't have a chance to absorb that experience because the teaching style was wrong.
Absolutely. And we find out that his father is one of those good ones. We find out that Santiago actually has a very supportive father that says, all right, well, be on your way then, do what you got to do,
Yeah.
and get your flock. And so he gets a flock of sheep, right? And then he goes and learns about life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the cool thing is that he learns about, so I guess what he does is as a shepherd, he's got a flock of sheep that and then he sells their wool, right? He shaves them, sells the wool, and then he carries on like that.
Yeah.
The milk and things like that. So, and he's a shepherd. So he gets to travel. He gets to travel the land, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what we kind of. But then he gets he has a dream, right? He dreams of something, right? Now, one of the other things that I actually wanted to mention to you is that the part of the world where this is happening is a place called Tarifa, which is southern Spain, which is in the region of Andalusia.
Okay.
Right. So if we want to get a little bit historical, the southern Spain was invaded by a nation called the Moors, right? The which is North Africans. So that had invaded there, right?
Well, interesting because that's where he went.
Yeah, exactly. And I was there actually. I was in Cordoba. I was in Granada. I was in Sevilla, right? And southern Spain is where this is taking place. So when they said Andalusia, I was actually fortunate enough to picture the landscapes because it's beautiful down there, bro. Like you see olive trees everywhere.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world that I intend on going back. And I think I told you I wanna retire in Granada because that just kind of sinks to my heart, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's where it's taking place. This whole thing is taking place in southern Spain. The southernmost point of Europe is actually Tarifa. That's where it is.
Okay.
So a little cool thing.
Yeah.
So he was able to actually see Morocco or Africa from where he was. So he was able to see Morocco, right, from where he was. So I was able to picture all that. So it was kind of cool for me. And he has a dream, right? If we want to go into it, he has this dream where he goes and he tells this person, this I think a gypsy woman, I think, and just as an aside, a gypsy woman actually scammed me in Granada.
No way.
She did some things with a flower, with a plant on my face, and she's like, "Well, pay me." And I take out like 15 euros, like a 5 and a 10, and she literally just takes the 10 out of my hands. I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then she's like, thank you. And she walks off. I got punked. I got literally punked by a gypsy in Granada.
You gotta keep you on your toes, man. They keep you on your toes.
Yeah. I was kept on my toes, man. So I think he goes and sees a gypsy woman, and he wasn't sure because it's Christianity that's prevalent in that area, right? So he's like, I hope she's not gypsy. I see the heart of Jesus on the wall, so maybe she's not. So she basically tells him, she's an interpreter of dreams, right? He's like, I have this dream where I go up to this place. Someone tells me about this treasure, and as soon as I get to the where the treasure should be, I wake up. So I don't know what that is. So she's supposed to interpret this dream for him.
Yeah.
So she tells him, you got to go to Egypt to beside the pyramids, and there's a treasure there. And she's like, you don't even have to pay me now. You need to get there, and I want 1/10 of your treasure. I think that's the deal she makes with him, right?
Yeah.
And then so he goes and he goes off, right? And I think after that he meets with the king, the old king that doesn't look like a king, Salim.
Right.
King Salim, or right? So that's who he meets after that. And that guy kind of pushes him through and says, "I can see the future and things like that." And he says, "Well, you got to go to Egypt and you got to get the treasure from there." So he was hard set on going to Egypt.
Yeah. And he
so
did.
That's what we kind of find out. Yeah.
And that's it, right? And the book kind of goes on from there on his journey of looking for that treasure. Actually, he's trying to figure out what the treasure even is. And
right.
As he interacts with various people, you can almost tell he's asking the wrong questions, because it's one of those.
Yeah.
You have to find it for yourself. Like, no one can tell you what your treasure is, right?
Absolutely.
It's yours. The personal meaning that we can all attribute and relate to when we read this book is like, that's what's getting close to our treasure, is finding our own meaning in it all.
Right.
Like that core in the center of us that guides us towards what we should be doing with our lives, and we kind of know. And when we stray a little bit too far from that over enough time, then you end up feeling like life's beating you up. But it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's not because, you just weren't on the right frequency. You just weren't on the right path of what you should be doing. I don't know. That's kind of what I saw.
That's absolutely exactly what it's supposed to be. And that's what I mean when I say this is a timeless story. I think this is a story that we can all relate to regardless of what we're into. Right? So then he flirts with the idea of going to Egypt. Right? He wants to go to Egypt. And man, oh man, does he go through adventures. He goes through a lot of adventures, because he goes and he's got to go, and it's a 2-hour boat ride from where he is in Tarifa to Tangier, which is in Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
Tangier is actually on my bucket list, bro, and I think we should go together, man. It's dope.
It amazes me
Tangier,
to this day.
I hear great things.
You still live in Canada. It's actually baffling. Because I think I know where your heart is.
Oh no, my heart is very much Canadian too. Don't get me wrong, bro. But it's just these places I would like to kind of get the feel of. It's when you know so much about these places, but you haven't been. I was so close when I was in southern Spain. I just didn't have time to travel to Tangier. But Tangier is actually one of the go-to places on my bucket list.
Okay.
So then he goes and he takes a short boat ride First of all, what does he have to do in order to, when the king, the old king, right, who didn't look like a king really,
right.
Him, what did he tell him? He told them, okay, well, I'll tell you what I think, and I'll tell you, what you should do, but you have to give me 1/10 of your flock, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You got to give me 1/10 of your flock. So he's got to give him 6 sheep. Although he's got 60 of them, so he wants to give 6. The other ones, his friend actually bought them all from him, right? Now he's got money to go to Tangier, to Tangier, to go cross over to Africa so he can get to the pyramids.
It's like he's investing in himself a little bit. He's making these compromises as he goes along, because it's, I need this person's help, but I also got to give something in return. So it's kind of reinforces the notion that people can help you, but you got to help them too. Like it's mutually beneficial that way.
I also saw the other side of it, which is that he had a decision to make. He had to sacrifice his flock, and you know how he goes into. I know these sheep. I know the one that's a bit lame. I know the one that has the best milk. I know the one that's about to have a kid. Like, he knows his sheep. Although for us it would just look like a flock of sheep. Yeah. For him, he knows them individually. And I think he was saying that to kind of paint the picture of how deeply entrenched he is in that relationship, in that thing that he's into. Like as a shepherd, he
Mm-hmm.
was well invested as a shepherd, right? He wasn't just doing it for funsies, right? He
Mm-hmm.
was actually doing it for real, for real. And when he said he had to sell off his flock, there was something in him that wasn't like that wasn't all the way okay with it, right? Obviously. So I think that's the concept of sacrifice that we
Mm.
need to kind of explore a little bit, which is, man, you're not getting something for nothing. You gotta give up something. You're gonna
Yeah.
have to sacrifice something one way or another in order for you to get to that next level of your project.
And
So
that's
that's kind of
totally
what I
what I,
got.
yeah. No, that's totally what I meant. Maybe I didn't explain it as good as you just did, but it's a matter of, it's giving back too, giving back and how can I say this? That we're going to achieve so much more by helping one
Mhm.
another than we are by
That's
trying
it.
to trip each other up.
That's it. That's
Uh,
it. So he actually had to let go of something. In order is it, I call it it's something called the monkey factor. All right.
mhm.
Essentially, if you put some good stuff like in a vase or in a jar that can only fit the monkey hand going in, right?
Mhm.
The monkey grabs the goodies, like the, I don't know, whatever it is, like the candy or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and then he wants to pull it out, but he can't pull it out because he now has a fist, right? He's got to let go for his hand to come out, right? So that's kind of like he's got to let go of those goodies to kind of get his hand out.
Yeah.
So to get to that next level of what you want to get accomplished, you need to sacrifice something. You need to let go of something that you maybe hold dear,
Yeah.
maybe hold very close. And so it's part of the scariness of flying on your own, right? On actually wholeheartedly committing to what you want to do.
Mhm.
So, long story short, he gets rid of the flock of sheep with some angst, gets the money. He goes where? He goes to Tangier, right? He goes to Africa. Takes a boat ride to Tangier. Now he's in this strange place, right? And he describes the call to prayer. You know how the Arabic clothing and all that. So you have to understand, like historically, southern Spain was occupied by the Islamic Empire, right?
Mhm.
But then I don't know. But then the Spanish Inquisition and all that happened later on, and is very much Christian now. Okay, but there's a lot of remnants. Like if you go to southern Spain, a lot of stuff there are, because this is an 800-year rule that the Islamic Empire was there.
Mhm.
So it's there, and you see the remnants. You see from the architecture to the food to even the way people look.
W-
You see the intermingling of the Moors and southern Spaniards, right?
Right. Right.
So he now hears the call to prayer. He sees people moving about weirdly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From his perspective, right? He sees the veiled women. Like he sees a whole other world
Well,
that's just 2 hours away from where he is.
he gets to
So
see
he's this.
the
Yeah,
roots of the multiple cultures that actually make up his background. He gets to explore
that's
that with his own eyes and body and right his own trip.
that's it. And it's strange for him, right? It's very strange at first because he doesn't get it. One of the funny parts for me was he called them infidels. He's like, oh, they called the prayer, this was the ways of the infidels, right?
Yeah.
Not knowing that on the other side he would be the infidel, right? So
That's
that's
it.
that's the funny thing about religion. But anyways, so he
So
calling them infidels, right?
yeah. Now, would you say there's an element of spiritual awakening that this book kind of hints at? I mean, you and I have very, very different backgrounds, and I'm not
Mhm.
surprised to hear you pick up on this element, which I would have had not even a chance to pick up on it. I haven't
Yeah,
traveled there. I'd love to. Um,
yeah,
but there's this element that I kept seizing in the book of how if you're doing what you ought to have been doing, like you're almost like this in a spiritual sense of fulfilling God's wishes, if you wish,
hmm hmm
then the universe is going to help you
open up,
achieve that.
open
Yeah.
up for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And not having had any of the religious background that you have, I still picked up on this spiritual vibe of it. Like this whole, I don't know, I've shared with you the whole white rabbit thing over the last year, whatever, like how it's like, okay, obviously I'm supposed to be doing this because would these 3 coincidences all have happened? Like, could I, right? And then these things have just kept happening and happening and happening. And now I smirk. Now I'm like, of course. I'm like, yeah,
and that's it. Right?
But like I've discovered my own, not necessarily just because of this book, but it certainly reinforces the accidental discovery of spirituality that I'm finding myself in midway through my 30s.
That's awesome.
Like by accident. So what's going on here? Can you reconcile these worlds for me? Because they're still separate. But
I'll try. I'll try.
Okay.
I'll give you the 2 stones. Remember the 2 stones?
Oh my God. Do we have to compromise?
Yeah, but I'll try. First of all, I want to be clear in very clearly separating spirituality from religion. I think these 2 things have to be uncoupled, because as far as I'm concerned, religion is man-made, whereas spirituality is something that we all have and explore it differently. Religion is an attempt to explore spirituality, right? Through a specific cultural prism or lens.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
100%.
That's what so my background is, obviously I come from Djibouti, and Somalis are mostly Muslims, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a religion, right? Through a specific lens, which is Arab, right? It's Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
But then it tries to define spirituality for you, and it gives you an avenue in which you can explore your spirituality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, to a certain extent, I had that just because, as a kid, I would go to the mosque, and there's that spiritual aspect of it was there, very present in my life, right? In my older age, I'm separating the 2 things, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of a spiritual person, not so much a religious person. You understand?
That's it.
So so that's what's happening. So we're understanding each other on the spirituality, because spirituality is all humans have that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you did not necessarily have any kind of, I don't want to call it training, but any kind of trailer to spirituality through any kind of religion.
Yeah, it was just a flat
That's
out.
how I would kind of explain it.
Flat out rejection of anything, even, and I never separated the 2. It's important you mentioned that.
Right.
I never separated spirituality from religion, and so it was all one and the same.
Right.
And now, right, like now the distinction is actually so clear that I'm finding myself becoming. If I were to say I feel I've become religious out of nowhere, that would be using the wrong.
True. No, it's at least you got exposed to it to a certain extent, though, and now you're coming to it, right? You're kind of understanding those kinds of things that I might have maybe intuitively gotten just because I was exposed to some sort of religion.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it is, and honestly, like when I was reading the book, and you kind of go through the book, you kind of see that spirituality is what's put in the forefront, right? Not so much religion. Now, one of the cool things that he had said, or this is like later on in the book, but he's a Christian boy, and he falls in love with Fatima, who's a Muslim girl, right? You know how he describes her beauty, and she was in that oasis when they were at that oasis. So he falls in love with her. So what I wrote is love is stronger than religion, because these 2 people are not meant to be together according to their religions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But love doesn't give a shit about that, right? They're like, oh, it's not. Biology will always win, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Right? So then essentially he goes to, what happens to him? First thing, he gets to Tangier. What happens to him? Some dude takes advantage of him, right? Some dude kind of takes his money. He's like, well, if you want to go to Egypt, it's all good. Give me all your money. I'm going to get us 2 camels. And what do we find out? That was just a prank, or not a prank, but a scam.
Mm-hmm.
He got scammed. Poor guy got scammed. Now he has no money. He's got So he pretty much sleeps in the streets, I think, and then I think he kind of helps out this dude with his opening of his store, and then he stays there for a few months, doesn't he? He stays in Tangier for at least a year, I think, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no, sorry, it was 3-4 months, something like that. He stays there for a while, just the time to get this guy. Okay, so the guy that was interesting. I found that interesting because the guy that he was an older guy that had this business. It was a glass business, right?
Right.
Glassware. And so this guy, his dream was he's always dreamt to go to Mecca because as part of one of the 5 pillars of Islam, he wanted to go to Mecca. That was his Egypt, right? That was his goal. And so then he said, yeah, but at that point, Santiago, we find that he's kind of given up on his dream. He's kind of like, it hurts too much to even think about it at this point, doesn't it? It hurts too much. It's like, maybe I'm just going to go back to Tarifa and get another flock of sheep because I have enough money now, right? And he tells his this old dude, maybe, and now you've made money, because I think he revamped the whole store. He kind of did some marketing things that made the store, very lucrative at that point, right? So then he told them, well, maybe you can go to Mecca. Now you have money, right? And the guy said, what? No. He's like, I'd rather not. I know I'm not going to go to Mecca because I'd rather just think. He's like, if I go to Mecca, and I come back, what else is there for me to look forward to? Which is a very human feeling sometimes, because that's the fear of success. Right? People talk about fear of failure often, but there's such a thing as a fear of success, because it's like, well, if I do that thing that's been driving me all these years, what am I going to have left? Right? Well, I have nothing left at that point.
100%.
So I think it speaks to the human spirit in that sense.
Yeah.
And so he basically says, okay, he's like, I'm not going to go to Mecca, and I know you're not going back to your sheep, right? That's what he told him. So that's when he goes and joins a caravan to go to Egypt, right? And that's where he meets the alchemist.
Yeah.
Right, the English dude. That's I want to hear what your thoughts are, because I'm just hugging the time here, because I was pushing you to read this, and now that you've read it, I don't want to be the one talking about it. Tell me your thoughts, bro.
No, it's all good. Well, it's funny you mentioned love, because that's kind of the premise. Love is stronger than anything. Forget religion, spirituality. It's literally stronger than anything. And all jokes aside, when Elon Musk is asked, what is our only solace for the future? What is our only answer? And he thinks about it. You know how he thinks for 10 seconds? And he just says, love. It is the most fundamental, strongest source of energy. And I know this is coming from me, like Mr. Single Forever, but if all we have is this finite space, and we're all trapped on Earth, bound by the laws of gravity, and if energy cannot be created or destroyed, and everything has to interact together, both heaven and hell, yin and yang, love and hate, maybe this is how the universe conspires to help you, but if you get on the right vibrational frequency, because you look into I think it's quantum physics enough, you realize everything's actually on a vibration, and nothing is, like this table's not sitting still because of what's actually happening at the microscopic level, right?
Right.
So I can't help but to see it as, obviously you want to ride the momentum of positivity, because everything's going to seesaw all the time. Changes are going to come your way, changes that were perhaps outside of your control. And again, how do you pursue your journey? How do you stay focused on the love when all of a sudden here comes fear and you have to overcome it? Or you start thinking, am I going just back? Am I going to not bother? Am I going to not bother fulfilling my destiny and following my dreams because I'm a little bit afraid? Well, where the fuck has being afraid gotten you so far? If you're looking for a change, that's kind of that's what I pick up from it. And as you know, I've completely changed what I'm doing with my life over the last year, and hopefully for the future. And I can't help but to extrapolate, the similarity between my journey to his.
Actually, yeah, that's very true. You actually are on your own journey as well, right? Now, so some of the things that he says throughout the book, that kind of stayed with me.
And sorry,
Is
let me
that
just add that I think that applies to everyone. I don't think my circumstances are any more special than the next guy's. I think everyone
absolutely
can
no?
project their own interpretation of this very same concept of love and hate and or fear, love and fear.
Everybody has their journey, right? Everybody, and this is the journey he goes on. And one of the cool things that he has said, and that I really liked, is when one makes, I think it's the old dude that told them this. When one makes a decision, he dives in a strong current. Meaning, it's the decision making that matters. Once you've made that decision, you're now in this pool that has a strong current that's going to carry you to where you want to go. The universe will conspire to give you what you want, but you got to make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, is what this is saying, right? So some of the I kind of bookmarked a few things, and another thing that he says, because sometimes you have a gut feeling, right? What is the proper name for gut feeling? Is intuition, right? Intuition.
Mm.
So he goes, intuition is the collective knowing that we access. It's sort of like a cloud, cloud space for all of humanity. You know, when you have this intuition, it's kind of like you tapped into something that everybody kind of knows. Like there's something that we, as human, all know,
Do
right? So
you
that's that intuition.
do you believe we have a collective consciousness?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, freaking, because he talks about the soul of the world, right? Are you like, what is the soul of the world? And he goes, when you want something with all of your heart, that's when you're closest to the soul of the world. So that's just nuts, because you actually have to want it. Is what the big picture is here. That's the big message here. Is you have to actually want it. Once you want it, you're tapping into something that's bigger than you, and that's gonna want to get you to that next level.
That's the part that leaves me with my eyes wide open right now. Right? So
Yeah.
again, as a non-religious, non-spiritual person for the the first third of my century on this planet, if I make it that far,
Right.
to not just understand what you're saying, to agree with what you're saying, but to agree with it to such a point that I can't truly use words to fully explain just how much I agree. It's actually a feeling.
Yeah.
It's like
That's how spirit.
it feels supernatural. It truly does, and
Yeah.
it's baffling and it's confusing, and I don't know what to make of it. And yeah,
It is what it is. You gotta.
no,
You
that's
have to
not
use it.
enough.
You literally.
That's
It's
not
not
it.
enough.
That's not enough.
But I feel that's your most natural state. Do you understand what I'm saying? If we kind of if we kind of get rid of all of the noise, and we kind of throw down the set, right, mind you, and you're in your purest form, you get to understand these things at that level.
Yeah,
At least that's how I feel. That's how I think you get to understand these things at
yeah,
that level. So yes, it is something that we can all understand. It is there is such a thing as a universal truth, or universal soul, if you will, and that's what spirituality is. Because a lot of people say everything is everything, and I don't think people actually understand what that means. We are connected. So
yeah.
that's why when you reject all the things that, excuse me, all the things that separate us, you're basically in default saying we're all one. We're one,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And when we're one, we all want the same things. We all have the same aspirations. We all want to get to that same next level.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the thing. That's what it is. It doesn't have to be this, I don't know, cerebral thing. That no, it just is what it is. That's our natural state of things.
Yeah.
That's how we are as humans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So at least that's how I see it.
I see it that way too. I could go in depth, but I know you got to go because of a time constraint. But
Yes.
that is absolutely how I see it. And I lost my train of thought.
I wanted to I wanted to actually share a couple other things before I let you go here, but you know when the English dude kind of gives a book to Santiago, and he reads it and whatnot, and it was the book of the alchemy, the alchemist book, and he sees all of these different things, all these tools, and all of that, and Santiago just kind of gives back the book after he read it, not overly excited about what he read. And I think we all feel this feeling sometimes when you're expecting a reaction and you don't get it. You kind of like, well, aren't you impressed with this? What's wrong with you, right? So the Alchemist is like, well, aren't you impressed with this? And I like this because that's when Santiago kind of says, it mumbles, well, everyone has their own way of learning things, right? But we're all in search of the same thing. We're taking different avenues, but we're all in search of the same thing. So that's one that kind of stuck with me.
Mm.
The last one that I want to share is the fear of failure, right? Because he says, I think the Alchemist at one point says, why did I wait 10 years to do this journey? But at least I didn't wait 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So that is very telling, because sometimes a lot of us kind of knock ourselves in thinking, why didn't I do this like 5 years ago? Why didn't I start so many years ago, right? But you can't do anything about the past. So you got to be able to kind of trick your brain saying, at least I'm not waiting more, right? So you got to do it now.
And
so
100%. And especially with this COVID. I hate to bring up COVID. Goddamn, I'm going to do one podcast without saying the fucking word COVID. But especially now, right? Especially now, it's pushing our digital communication, and we're now our international economies, our international societies, they're all intertwined. We're no longer living like 2,000 years ago. We've discovered electricity and the internet, and we're practically creating transcendence of the human species through artificial intelligence. So it's time to unite. It's time to work together and to focus on love and not on fear, because every time we accuse and we try to, cancel culture and all that stuff, and people bickering on Facebook and the internet, what is that? A lot of those are just projections of the things we feel repressed, and so we're just projecting it on other people.
That's absolutely true, and it takes a lot of courage to love, is what I was saying, right? It takes a lot of courage to love, and that's why our default position isn't that. I think sometimes maybe it's our natural disposition, but it's not our, because we want to be guarded. We oftentimes, maybe we've been hurt, maybe, right? So a lot of times we kind of forget. We kind of forget that, okay, no, just come back to love and do it like, unconditionally, and see what happens. We've done the killing, we've done all of these different things. Let's try this love, like in the risk of sounding like a hippie. That makes the most sense. Well,
it does. What I was saying about technology is because we can't be tribal anymore. We're too interconnected. We're living a completely intertwined lifestyle, and it's time that we adopt a mindset that puts us together internationally as a whole species, so we can tackle global warming as Mother Earth, not as individual countries with opposing viewpoints on, is it even an issue? Like, we're never going to solve it that way.
No, absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I hope, did you like it? Like, just in closing thoughts, you liked the book, right?
Of course, absolutely. And I think we should stick to our pact, because we said we're going to do a book review on 12 Rules for Life for Jordan Peterson, which will be my turn to say that I've read it 3 times in the last 3 years.
Beautiful.
It's a great book. It's a long book, but there's so much wisdom, because he's gone through a lot of life experience and some, unfortunate illness in his family, and the way you recover from challenges and what it teaches you about who you are and the psyche and the human psyche and overcoming adversity and all that. So that's definitely a book I can't wait for you to finish, so we can do another one of these on Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right on, bro.
All right, man. That's I'm glad we talked about this. I'm sorry I gotta run. I got a work thing that I have to take care of. But thank you so much for reading it, first of all, and for talking about it.
Listen, thanks for the podcast, bro, as always. And now, I guess,
all right,
turn on those afterburners and keep the Batmobile on the road. I know how you 3-wheel around those roundabouts now. I've seen you take a corner. Yeah.
You taught me, man. If I get arrested, I'm bringing them to you.
Oh, boy. All right, Con. Take it easy, buddy.
All right, brother.
Thanks again.
Peace out.
All right, peace. Cheers.